Being in your 20s comes with a new sense of individuality. Whether you're leaving your hometown or moving out of your parents to start your adult journey, this can be the first time you're defying a parent's wish. But how do you determine when your parent is the one holding you back from achieving your best self?
Hi guys, this is Bri, your host. Welcome to You're Not Doing It Wrong, where we talk about the many troubling topics of today's millennials and discuss how to navigate your next quarter-life crisis, because we're all too busy thinking about what we should be doing and not what we want to do.
And I'm your co-host, Ally. Welcome back to Season 2.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. Today, we have a very, very special guest with us, Bri's brother, Jose, aka Tony.
Hey, guys. It's Tony. Also, call me Jose.
So cute. Today is Jose's 25th birthday. So, happy birthday, Jose.
Thank you.
And congratulations, you're our first guest of our podcast.
I know you should feel honored. We've had a lot of guest requests.
Oh, well, I really do. I genuinely do. No, you guys are very insightful. I appreciate it.
That's so sweet. So we wanted to bring him for a little bit of a different point of view, and this is going to be kind of about his experience and Bri's experiences.
Yeah, we can definitely parallel experiences because we both grew up in the same place,
Exactly.
house.
Same mother, same father.
Same mother, but I think different experiences.
Yeah.
To some
I
extent.
definitely, because my sister, she lives so far from me.
It's not that far. It's only 4
I
hours.
said it's still
It's far enough.
It's far enough to
But
where
I
it
think
makes
we
a
also had
significant
different
change.
experiences in like our early 20s.
Mhm.
Yes.
So
We definitely did. I will say.
we wanted to talk a little bit about both like the parent and adult child relationships, right? My experience with both like my mom, your mom, our mom.
Your
And
mom.
like growing up with like strict and demanding parents. Like I think both of us can agree that we grew up with a parent.
Very
both,
high expectations.
Mhm,
I
yeah,
think.
extremely high expectations. But I think that played out a little different in our adulthood.
I think like I put them on a pedestal when I was younger. I definitely think that whenever we were growing up, I thought they were the cream of the crop, and then when I got older, I was like, hold on, this is like something. There's a disconnect here. Like I started realizing like. I guess I started uncovering, and I remember having a conversation with you, like when I was younger, and like we were like sleeping. I was like, "Are our parents like gonna be okay?" And then you were like, "No, they'll probably end up getting a divorce." And I was like,
Jose.
and I was literally like,
You're like,
"No, they love each other. They love each
Jose's
other
so
so
optimistic, and I'm like
much."
so
I'm
realistic.
like, they would never do that. To this day, they still haven't. So I guess I'm still winning that.
He was
Still
right.
winning that argument.
Yeah, I'm still
Also,
winning
just for
that.
some context, Jose's 3 years younger than
Correct.
Bri. So-
Yeah. Yeah.
So we were right
Just-
behind each other.
He's a 2 years and 11 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's different in that aspect also because I'm the oldest. So I'm the oldest of 4 and he's the second of 4. And I think we just did have different perspectives, but I also think personality wise we're different in the sense that, like he said, he's, in my opinion, more of an optimist than I am. I've always been more of a realist, and Ali would argue even that I'm somewhat pessimistic.
She is.
I would argue also, though, that I still get a bit. I think there's like a scale because even my significant other, he says that I'm a bit pessimistic, and I'm like,
But
I
I
would
think we grew
say
up
all
that
of
way.
your family. Yeah, I would say like your siblings, your group of 4 is all sort of that
yeah,
way.
we're like, I don't know, we're just very realistic. Like we were never given like.
I think I'm
a
going to get into
sugarcoating.
why, though. Like, I
Okay.
think this episode's going to reveal a little bit about why we feel that way.
Like,
Because,
we never got anything sugarcoated to us ever. Like it was.
Yeah.
always,
Is that what you
like,
were gonna
straight
say?
up.
yeah, that's part of it. Yeah, I agree with that. I think my mom always did a really good job of like having adult conversations with her young children, which I don't know that it was like the best format. We were never really shielded from a lot of different things that, most people don't understand. Like I always tell people, like friends of mine that are the same age, like I grew up knowing we were poor, like not poor, like middle class kind of, but a little bit less than that. Like I knew what food stamps were. I knew we were on Medicaid. I knew that certain things were free, and I also knew like certain things we couldn't.
And that's so
Afford.
funny because me growing up, I didn't even notice any of that.
You
I
didn't?
genuinely did not.
That's crazy.
I just thought that like they just managed. Like I would never really pay attention to where it was coming
But
from.
did you think that you were like that you guys had money, or did you think that you were just
I
like
just
normal?
thought that we were like fine. Like I knew that there were always conversations about money, and like even growing up now, like I remember we still talk about it. We're like, yeah, all our arguments were mostly about money.
And you didn't think that was weird?
See, but I
No,
feel
I
like
just thought she was just being hard, like on my dad, because she was like, we need to budget. Like, you know, she had been hard on all of us. It didn't seem that different that she would also be hard on her husband.
I think in the neighborhood we lived in, it was kind of
really hard.
like I always
to
joke.
notice.
I mean, I didn't joke, right? It's not really a joke, but I always thought to myself, like when I was in high school, I was like, there are a lot of other kids who have it worse. Like my parents
that was
hide.
one good thing that she really did. She did teach us, and Loki was also my dad. But like,
I said, who is she?
Santorini.
Santoroni, aka Mother.
Mother.
She is Mother.
But you know, again, part of that sugarcoating process was also always telling us, like, I feel like we grew up with the understanding of there's always going to be somebody that's better than you, and there's always going to be somebody that's worse than you, but you always need to strive to be better.
Yes,
so it was like constantly that.
It was also like, don't complain about what you have. It was like both ends of the spectrum. Don't complain about what you have because people have less than you, but also like you need more.
Yeah,
Like,
but
if
you
that
should
makes
also
sense.
want. But you. So it's super confusing, right? This is good. It's a good foundation for this episode because I think the point of this episode is really learning to start making those decisions for yourself and also understanding the versions of that, right?
Yeah.
Like understanding what your standards are, not what others like, not what your parents expect of you or what your parents' expectations of you are, because as you get into your adulthood, right, this whole time when you're younger, you're like, yeah, you just do what you're told, right? You do what mom says.
It's a rigid schedule.
Yeah, but it's also one of these things like you do what's expected of you in terms of like grades, or do what's expected of you when it comes to like what you're studying, how you're studying, who your friends are. Like I remember mom used to have very strong feelings about who our friends were.
Yeah,
and I used to think that was like really weird because I was like, I don't feel like other people's parents are talking to them about who they should and shouldn't have friends with. But like she was always very hard. Like I don't really like her. I don't think you should be friends with her, and or you know, like I don't really like that you're hanging around with them. And I used to think to myself, like,
I also feel like Bri was really like a social butterfly though. She was a socialite. Like in high school, I don't think I
feel like you were.
Jose went through a period of time where I think he was more isolated than making friends.
But it was really hard for me to get to like relate to people, bring people over because
that's
the
true.
time
You
that
never
she
brought
was
anybody
in
over.
high school and like she was getting all that attention and stuff. I was still in middle school and they were transferring me from middle school to middle school.
It's just interesting to me because I feel like talking about the different ways that mom like impacted you or like kind of made those decisions almost for us, right? And there was a lot of like decision making that was made for us. And then you get to, by the time like I'm going to college and Jose's like still in high school, you kind of start getting, well, for me personally, I say, let's take it back, right? When we're talking about starting to make your own decisions, especially in your young adulthood, I think for me it started a lot earlier. I think for me it started...
You were very independent. Like you made a lot of choices for yourself.
Yes, and I also had to be, quote unquote, a trailblazer in that aspect because I think I started kind of revolting as early as like...
Well, like you had
freshman year.
She had to. Like, honestly, if... Like, the thing
Why do you feel like she had to, though?
No, because, I mean, at the end of the day, my mom was always pushing us forward, but she would also be a deterrent to us to move forward in life. Like, she would give us... Yeah.
He was our biggest op and yet our biggest supporter. Yeah. It's crazy.
And that's, like, the struggle of it. It's like, you have someone who cares so deeply about you, but then someone also that, like... wants to keep you in their bubble because like regardless of whether or not
I feel like she still wants to be in control. If that makes sense.
Like as if she never changed like the dynamic of what our life was. Like we become more independent, we run our lives, but she still wants to run our lives. Yeah. So then like when she sees you like flourishing, moving out of like her control, she's like, wait, let me try to bring you back in.
So he's like, if you're watching the video, he's like chess pieces, like
no, and that's really like I honestly do feel like, and I left. You know, I want to give my mom. I want to take a moment here to give my mom the benefit of the doubt, and also like give her the credit where it's due. Right? Like I feel like her whole life was us. You know, like
she was a very young mom.
I mean, we've mentioned it on the podcast before.
Gotta be something psychological though. like you see a lot of this like on social media too, just talking about mothers like doting on their children to the point that it becomes kind of obsessive.
Yeah.
Helicopter
Yeah,
parenting.
like, and it even gets to like a really parasocial relationship. They love their kids so much they almost like project their like
Yes.
their love into them rather than their partners.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and
like,
I think
it's-
mom's definitely guilty of that.
And I wanted to say, like, we've talked about it on the podcast before too. Like, you guys, your mom was a teen mom, obviously.
Yeah.
So I think that has like a lot to do with it, because it really is true. Like, her whole life was you. Because you think about it, like, I met you when you were a sophomore in college. She would have been like literally having Bri. So like, imagine just having a kid at 16 and then
I
having
can't.
to take care of
I
them.
can't picture it. And so that's where I was getting to. That big point is that
Yeah.
because she had us so young, I feel like for a really long time, I don't think so much, well, somewhat, but I think, she's growing out of it. But I think for a really long time, I just felt like she didn't have anything else that she was putting her energy into. So it was really important for her to feel like
Important
her
in
energy
someone's
was
life.
like going in the direction that she wanted it to, right?
Yeah.
I'm expending all of this energy and I see a path for you in this way. So my energy needs to be directed in that way. And
Yeah.
you need to follow that direction. And I like to picture it as like, again, this is going to sound kind of harsh, but it's like, I want you to climb this mountain. I know you can do this, but hey, I'm not going to stay at the bottom of this mountain. Like, you have to put me on your back and back me up down to this. And so she like wants us to succeed, but she wants us to succeed together, right? And she wants to be part of that success. But I think the hardest part of
we
all
have
that,
very different childhoods.
the hardest part of that is that sometimes I feel like it really does take her taking a step back and standing there while you go on to do that, right? Because realistically, you just can't. You can't take her with you. Like, you have to climb this mountain on your own and be at the top. And then fucking send down a rope to bring her up. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not realistic for you to carry somebody when you're not strong enough to do that yet.
Yeah.
That's the way I
Very
like to picture it.
metaphorical, though, and I've seen it also depicted in that way, just online in general. In order for you to move up or like succeed, you kind of have to go alone.
Yeah.
And then if you want and if you are capable, you drop down like the rope, like you mentioned, for the other people to follow up. And that's exactly what Brianna did. Like, honestly, like my brother's success, my own success, like we all kind of like leaned on her for understanding of like what to do in college situations. Like, we would call her, text her, ask her for anything. She was there for us
don't make me
while
cry.
also still being a freshman, like in college. Like, that was
Yeah.
insane.
I
Because
remember.
I needed her help, and if she didn't intervene, I probably wouldn't have even went to college. Like, I probably would have just stayed home. But thankfully,
You're gonna make her cry, Jose. Calm down.
No, it's fine.
no. But thankfully, I mean, it happened. Like, she got it done. Like,
Yeah.
we
I
all
feel like
managed to.
I think about that, right? And I feel like that was a turning point for all of us. So this is why I say mine, I think, happened a little earlier than I would have loved for it to happen, but it really did happen. It happened both in high school with me, like, coming out and then just being, this is who I am. I know that's not what you want, but that's just what it is. It, like, propelled Jose enough strength to be able to say, I am who I am and I want to be that.
Yeah.
And it took him a while to do that. My mom didn't want me to go to school 4 hours away. And I probably wouldn't have. But I was
3.
like,
Don't get it twisted.
oh, well, yeah, now I'm 4. Sorry. Yeah, like 2.5 hours away. It wasn't even that far away. But in her mind, no one in her family, even extended family, had ever left home. And in her mind, that wasn't the right thing to do because it was expensive, because you weren't around family. You weren't going to be, around to get support.
Yeah, but Bri like was ready for it. Like, she needed it at that
I
point.
really did.
Yeah,
And
I agree.
that was the first moment that I was like, I hear you and I hear what you want from me, but it's not what I want for myself.
Yeah.
Like, and I had done as much as I could to keep us like on the same playing field, but it was like, at that point I was like, I can't do it anymore. So that was like the first step out, right? And what I really want to talk about on this episode too is about how we move from that transition of doing what you need, even when it doesn't align to what mom, dad, or whoever
Right.
is like the leader of your pack wants. Some of the things that really cause that is, I mentioned too already, right? Like sexuality, that was a big turning point for me. And then education was another, because I was like, I want to move away. But sometimes it goes as far as like who you're dating, or even just like your career. Your parents want to tell you how and when and who you should be with. And I feel like those are big turning points for a lot of young adults nowadays. What do you do when you run into that issue? And why do we think it's like so hard to choose our own path when we hit those like obstacles, when we can't align on those things? But yeah, put a couple things down, but we can talk through them. I felt like the first one that really hurts young adults is like culture and this idea that, you know, it's disrespectful to not do what your parents want from you.
Yeah, that's a standard across the board. You're raised to say, respect your elders, etc., etc. I think that there's two sides of a coin of that. I can agree when there's respect given back to you, you earn respect back, obviously. And you also have to be aware of your situation. That's the biggest thing. And then on top of that, there's the second part where it's even though you're older than me, like we're still people. There still has to be some sense of mutual understanding. There's a line, there's boundaries.
I don't think a lot of people in our culture, and especially like if you guys look at your family specifically, like you're very close. You live all together in the same city. So it's like weird for somebody to do something that maybe your parents don't approve of or your like grandparents don't approve of. So I think that's like big, especially for you guys too. Your mom's siblings still live, you know, near her. They're very involved in their life. Her parents are still very involved.
It's just really normal for them. Just genuinely.
Even though we're technically in the same culture, like I always tell Bri, I didn't grow up like that because I didn't grow up next to my extended family. I grew up with just like my mom, my dad, my siblings. So to me, if I'm going to go off and do my own thing, that's normal.
And like for us, it really wasn't like this idea of like Latinos have to stick together and you have to like it's a very strong unit, right? When it's like extended family, like I hear like Eva and some of our other friends talk about it too. Like our cousins are doing this and like they know everything about everyone and they're always together or they're always doing something together. And I'm like,
or even that too, like they'll feel guilty because you know, like I'm in college, but like my sister's back home and like my brothers are back home and I'm like, you're not in charge of raising your siblings. Like you are a child.
Your own person.
Like, your own person.
Your own person to be able. And I feel like that, like guilt tripping, or it's not so much like other people guilt trip you. It's just you carry this guilt with you of like, I'm not doing almost like what's right? But it's like, we have to remember we're not doing it wrong. We're just trying to be our own person. We're trying to find our own way, trying to figure out what's best for us. And that's how you truly like kind of make your way out of being like under this control, essentially.
Yeah.
But religion is another one, right? I think about that a lot. And I feel like for me, and I've talked about this somewhat, but not too much.
Religious trauma.
Yes, I was literally about to go there. Religious trauma is like so real. You grow up thinking you must honor and obey your mother and father. Doing anything that...
Not the Bible quoting.
Doing anything... It's a commandment, whatever.
That shows
Brianna
how much I know.
literally like a gold star.
I know. I went to Bible school and I'm like, not me not knowing anything about this religion.
Yeah, but it's like this idea that if you do anything to upset your parent or you do anything that is against their wishes, you're fucking going to hell, right? Yeah, it's blasphemy. Blasphemy, Jose. It's blasphemy.
Yeah.
But
yeah, girl.
That is two of the big ones. And the other one that I also think about, which was kind of going back to this idea of guilt, right, is financial or life sacrifice. They give so much, so you're like, well, I should do what they want.
I think that goes back to culture, though. I see that a lot, especially within like
that you almost have to repay it back.
Yes. That like once they graduate college, they're like, oh, thank you to my mom and dad, and I'm like, but they didn't pay for anything.
What? And it's the expectation. It's the expectation that you're like, but I gave you life. Like,
yeah, that's a big one, especially in our culture. I think it's huge. It goes back to like culture aspect
and just like representation. I remember growing up, like they would always remind us, you are a representation of like what I am. Like, we are not even made to be our own people. We are a representation of what our parents
that's
are.
so sad, Jose.
I do. That's something my mom said a lot.
Yeah, she's like, you think that I'm gonna let you go out looking like this? What are people gonna think about who your mom is? I mean,
she used to say that when she hated what we were wearing.
Yeah, specifically when like,
I remember
that's crazy.
And that's so funny because I literally grew up and I let my mom dress me until I was like late.
No, I know. I remember too being over there. Like the specific example that comes to mind is Monica's quinceañera, and like she was like getting mad at Andrew about his shoes, and I was like, dude, he's like.
It could be perfectly
How old was he? Like 16, 17?
He had to have been, like 16. Junior, maybe.
And I was like, just
Yeah,
let him
like,
wear.
okay,
There's nothing wrong with his outfit. Why are you complaining? Like,
Growing up, that was like for me, for example. I hated wearing dresses, and I also didn't like the girly girl stuff. But that was a constant argument growing up. It was just always this idea of like, you have to wear what I want you to wear, especially if we're going to a family function, because what are they gonna say? Like, they're gonna make it about me. So it was always about her, not about me, not about what I was comfortable in or not what I
wanted to wear.
right? There was no sense of self-expression.
Yeah,
It was
I feel
always
like-
just about you're expressing what I want you to express.
Yeah, I feel like Brienne definitely grew into her self-expression more. The longer that she was away from my mom, she grew more into her self-expression.
Yeah.
I feel also like I was able to coexist with her, so I developed my own self-expression as well. And obviously I work like at a retail store right now, so I get to do like I get to shop for whatever I want. And,
And
I
he
get
can
to
be shopping.
Now you're like
I do
25.
be
Like, how long
shopping.
did it take for you
Yeah.
to get there?
this is like recent too, because I feel like even we go back a couple of years ago, you were still like,
Yeah.
Mom, and your mom would still buy you like clothes. I mean, my mom still buys my brother.
She still buys me articles and pieces, but she definitely doesn't create my whole wardrobe.
Yes.
I'm able to make decisions, whether that be like where I shop, what I shop.
So all of this to say is like, once you get older and as you get,
Mhm.
you know, into certain levels of your life, you have to make decisions for yourself and find your individuality. But it becomes harder because of all these things that we just talked about. I think one of the biggest things too is I find a lot of people are like, I feel like I have a narcissistic parent. And I think that phrase in and of itself can be thrown around a lot. I kind of wanted to talk about like, what do you guys think really, how would you define like a narcissistic parent, and where do you draw the line, right? Where is the line between, you know, it's just culture, it's just religious, it's just this expectation, and then where in that aspect does it become, it's not even about culture, it's not even about religion, it's about control, it's about narcissism, it's about making it about themselves, and also what contributes to people or parents being that kind of way.
Yeah.
Personally, I think it's a personal thing. I mean, personally, I think personal. But
I personally think.
yeah, I think it's a personal background. I feel all of us have taken in certain comments and directives differently. We've all kind of grasped onto bits and pieces of growing up, and it developed like some of what I feel is now
Part of our identity.
Yeah, like it's almost like it created a trauma in us, but it's different things. So
like each of us took a piece of what mom did and like ran
that's
with it.
why I'm saying like I think it's a personal opinion. Honestly, like when it comes to narcissism, it can't be really defined because people just have different levels of sensitivity.
Not true.
I mean, it can be defined. It can be defined, but I feel like it.
But I think I think what you're trying to say is that you can have a narcissistic parent, but the way it affects you is different.
That's different, though. I think what Bri was trying to ask is like, where do you draw the line to decide like my parent is
being toxic,
and I feel like I don't feel like I have a toxic parent, so to me it's hard, but when I look at other situations, I think it's what you said.
Allie's like, that's toxic, and I'm like,
Yes.
I mean, that's kind of normal for me though.
No.
Yeah.
But also going back to what you said about the control, when you think about the reasons that these parents are doing things and you ask yourself, is it because of culture? Is it because of religion? Or is it just because they want to control me?
Yeah. Sometimes I think it's best to think about it this way too. Is it that they just want to control you, or is it like you have to
That
see
they
it
want
from
the
their
best from
POV?
you.
Right. They
Yeah.
want the best from you. They want the best for you, or are they trying to push you? I think it just really, you have to kind of see it from different lenses.
Would you like to know the traits of a narcissistic parent?
Sure.
Tell
I
us.
want to know.
According to Bri's notes, we have self-centeredness, so self-absorbed, demand to be the center of attention, preoccupied with power, that kind of thing. Dishonesty, so they lie, they deny, they shift blame.
Yeah.
Okay.
Poor boundaries.
So I think that one is definitely strong with our
it's
parents.
strong.
Poor boundaries.
Okay.
Yeah.
Emotional reactivity, so they may be emotionally reactive but chain their child's
Just say,
emotions.
when you agree.
Mm.
Unrealistic expectations. Exploitative behavior, so they exploit their children for their own gain.
I mean, I feel like that one's a little harsher. Like, I don't necessarily, my parents really, like I feel like did gain from us in some ways, but I also don't necessarily feel like it's done on purpose.
It's definitely, that's what I'm saying.
You're
though.
looking at us like,
Look,
from
this is
the outside looking in, I see that one.
you definitely.
I think that one, okay,
hold on.
let me maybe clarify. I feel like maybe they have had some intentions of doing this, but I don't think we allow ourselves.
They
Now.
like respect
Now.
the boundary a little bit.
Now.
That's
That
what
one's like a harsher boundary that
Yeah.
I feel like hasn't been crossed just yet.
just yet. But I mean,
Okay,
for
Or at least not
We'll stay there.
to the extent that I would feel
I
excluded.
don't know with the there's nothing in the notes that says like, oh, they have to check off this many in order to be considered a narcissistic
Right, but that's why
parent.
I feel like it's also levels.
Yes.
yeah, there are certain aspects to it.
Possessiveness. So they're threatened by their children's growing independence and believe their children exist solely to
Yeah.
fulfill their needs. Sorry, you guys. Max is like going crazy.
I don't know. That was a little harder for me. I feel
Yeah,
like. I think it depends on the kid. My
yeah,
mom,
that's what I'm saying.
like, I
it's-
feel like she's not like that with all of us. Like, I didn't feel like, like when I
Interesting.
decided to take off for my independence, I feel like that first run of like the sexuality thing was kind of some possessive. Like, she was very isolating.
yeah,
But then, like, by the time I hit college, I didn't feel like there was any
yeah.
possessiveness.
Like,
But
I
mean,
was
she
like, I'm
also
all on my
out
own
of
now.
her sight.
Okay.
Yeah,
How to say type thing.
Harshness, harsh and critical, and use shame as punishment.
Yes.
yeah.
And the last one is bragging. So they brag about their children's achievements to others, but rarely validate or acknowledge them personally.
Yeah.
That one is big for me. That one is so big for me. And I've told my mom
I see that one a lot,
previously,
yeah.
growing up, she'd always be like, oh, my kids are great. They're like the best.
Yeah.
But I'm like, great. Wait, you was just telling me in the car that I suck. Like, what do you
Yeah.
mean?
It was a compliment sandwich. Like she told you a compliment.
It's backhanded
hated
compliment,
it,
yeah.
hated you, and then another compliment.
And then brag
And it was
about
like,
you.
I think it was so confusing growing up because I'd always be
It was-
like,
yeah, I was like, oh yeah, she talks about me to her friends, but
like
then I would
obviously
also
she
be like,
loves me. She brags about me all the time. But then like when it's just one-on-one with you in the car, she's like, you should be doing better. Like, what's
Oh my
wrong
God,
with
yeah.
you? And you're like, but you just told your friend that I was like doing so great in school. I don't understand.
by
Like,
the way, Brianna, I love your shirt. I
Oh,
just
thank you.
noticed that it was
This
Monty.
birthday present.
I gave it to her last year for her
It is
birthday.
just
Yeah,
so
Monty's
darn
shirt.
stinking
It's
adorable.
Monty, her
It's
dog.
all his face.
Which you don't ever see Monty on the video because he's not allowed in when we're
Oh
recording.
gosh, he would be wrecking this
No.
room.
Although Max is about to get cut too.
Max, what do you think? Should Billy be? No? Okay, he's a chick. Anyways,
I love those videos where they like hold a mic up to animals and
Yes,
like
and they're
ask
like-
them questions.
yes, at the vet clinic.
Yeah,
I want to get one of those little mics.
and then you just like bring it up to his face.
You guys are so funny.
I mean, back to the topic at hand. Just to say, I feel we definitely check a lot of boxes off of there, but it has to do with reactivity. I think, especially when it comes to the kids, because we all, like I said, took it in differently. Like on paper, you can definitely say yes, but in person, it's completely different. I think it's really based off feeling.
I also think this though. I
I
think
think you think that because you're not seeing it from like the outside.
Yeah,
The outside looking in.
because I mean,
I
that's
feel like
like
we're used
every
to it.
relationship.
It's not. We're not here to like dog on their parents or anything. Like we're just talking about how to cope with certain maybe like over parenting, especially when you get into your 20s, because I feel like it's so hard
I
to
won't say I have a
detach.
narcissistic parent. I think she has a lot of narcissistic behavior,
Tendencies.
tendencies
Yeah.
that she has to work on. And again, I love my mom.
Max looks
She was a
crazy.
young mom. She did a lot for us,
Yeah,
and I
she
think
really
she did the
did.
best that she could with what she had.
Mm.
Yeah, but I mean that
And I
also.
really do chalk it up to that. Like I chalk it up to that even now. That I'm like,
I
I
can
think
look back and like remove myself from the situation and realize that like she is her
She's
first
just
time
a girl.
living. You know, like we gotta give it to her.
She's just a girl. Have you seen
She
those?
is just a
She's
girl.
just-
My
she's just
my
a girl.
coworker literally, she says that all the time. She's like, "I'm just a girl." Like,
No, I said that too. One time she came to visit us to go get the permit for like the car or whatever in Mexico. And when we were dropping her back off at the airport, she just had like a little backpack. Like she didn't have a suitcase or nothing. So she gets off with the backpack. And like, if you guys see Bri's mom, she's like short and like little.
we
she has
used to
little-
call her like
little
a little
backpack.
minion.
And she's like, okay, bye guys. And she's like walking into the airport. And I was like, dang, she really is just a girl.
Yeah,
She really is.
we love her.
she used to say I was the guinea pig.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't think that's right to tell me, but okay. But the other thing I was going to say too is we're talking about this narcissistic behavior and this idea of I need power, I need control.
Mm-hmm.
And I also want us to remember, and this is what I try to remember at least about my mom, is it's not even just about the fact that maybe she wants to control. It's also that I truly do think fear drives a lot of it. Her fear that we'll fail, her fear that
Will be
we may be
perceived
differently, or that will be seen as less. She's always told me, even with me coming out years after all of the things, and you know, she's progressed, and we've talked about this, she's progressed so much in all of it.
Really has.
Be who you are. We said she literally hands me clear gear without telling me. She's like, "Here, I found this shirt," and I'm like,
And it has a
"It's
rainbow
the
on it.
ugliest thing I've ever seen." But okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I like.
She's like, I got you these shorts.
But she said it. I feel like the way I reacted was more out of fear of I wanted to prepare you for the worst.
Have
I
you
wanted
guys
you
seen
to.
Heartstoppers?
No.
I have.
my
I
God.
have.
Oh my
Yeah.
god, that's so funny because in the first season, there's this girl. She comes up to like the lesbian couple and she's like, "Are you two dating?" And then she's like, "I'm not homophobic. I'm just asking." Like, yeah,
It's a perfect
That's
accent.
what my
It's a
mom
perfect
is.
accent.
Yeah.
That's what your mom can for real.
She's like,
No, that's so
literally.
accurate, 'cause
She's
she
like,
would
"I'm
walk
not
up to people like that."
homophobic. I'm just asking.
Oh
Like, that's
my
literally, that show is so good.
So I wanted to talk about this note that you had about
Mhm.
some of what children of narcissistic parents, the traits that they develop, and I wanted to see what you guys' thoughts were. So it was like codependency,
Mm-hmm.
over reliance on others for validation,
I agree with that, yeah.
or identity of a sense of self.
I think it's like what Jose said.
I feel
Like
that
it
hits
takes
the mark.
longer for the sense of self to kick in.
Yeah, I mean, like the further you are away, like Brianna, like the more time you separate yourself from that blob that is kind of like a narcissistic parent, you start to kind of gain a self awareness. What you said, you're finally looking at it from a different
Angle,
perspective.
perspective, yeah.
And it's being alone and realizing, I mean, I can do absolutely whatever I want in this life. And I always say that you can do absolutely anything in this life.
Talk to
Like,
Jose.
have y'all played The Sims? Do anything in your life.
Yeah, that's so,
Oh,
that's a good
you're
one.
so funny. Have y'all played this?
You're like, bitch, take control.
Like, yeah, no, like,
just go
I
build
think
the house,
it's
girl.
part of my like Aquarius complex or something,
Yes.
but I love playing God. They just released, I said no promo, but they just released The Sims and The Sims 2
Jose's the perfect guest because he's so stupid.
for like on Electronic Arts. I know that they're a greedy company, but I did purchase. I'm sorry. Please shame me because I cannot support these corporations anymore.
He's
And
like,
EA,
I need a sense of self.
please shame me.
Okay. What about self-blame? So blaming themselves for family problems rather than blaming their parents.
I think you do that a lot. I think you do that too. I think you still do that. I don't think I do.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, I think you guys are right.
You're like, oh, it's just the situation that we're in.
Well,
And
it's
I'm like,
because
Jose.
I hate the idea of placing blame on a specific person
yeah.
or anything. It really is what it is. It's just the dynamic. Something's just happened just because
I'll
it's
give
a
you an
dynamic.
example. I'll give you an example, right? The other day, or a couple months ago, maybe even, I was visiting mom, dad, and I was talking to Monica, our youngest sister, and she was literally, well, I just feel so bad for dad. I feel so bad because he always has to work and he's working all the time. And I don't understand why we need all this money. And I just wish he was not unhappy. And I was like, but you do understand that this is the position they're putting themselves in, right?
Mhm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
truthfully, I'm not saying he doesn't have to work, but also he doesn't have to work at this job. He can make a decision to
like,
try and learn another craft, to change careers. He could learn to, if you don't even want to be a provider, just be like, no, I'm not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. He just, I always think to myself, like, we all have decisions.
Yeah.
We all have choices. You can make them. The choices you're making and the choices you've made, right,
Affect your future.
led you to this moment right here.
It's called the butterfly effect. You ever heard
Oh, yeah, I have heard of that.
I haven't, but
that? Well, the butterfly effect is
other than the movie, of course, but I haven't really understood.
essentially the movie is kind of nose on or whatever. It's on the nose. But essentially it's like even like a different butterfly flying in a different place or something could affect your future. Like it's something super small that could just impact your entire future. But yeah, it's true. I've had instances like that working on my current job. I met this beautiful Russian woman, She is she's been there for a while, and honestly, she was really cool. But she told me about the program that I'm in for school, and like her just mentioning it, like literally resolved every problem I ever had.
Yeah.
Like, it was just such a
Light bulb.
yeah. It was literally something super small, something offhanded that she was like, "Oh, this company pays for like they pay for your tuition."
Yeah.
And
And
I
he was like, where do I sign?
yeah, I was like,
Mhm.
okay, well, can you show me? She
Mhm.
showed me. I got back in it.
And now you
I'm
thrive.
about to finish.
Yeah,
So,
I agree with that. I even think about like me just going and choosing to go to A&M. My life would be
your
so
life would be
different
so different.
should I have not chosen to do that. You know?
Yeah, I agree.
Totally agree.
So
Yeah.
again, it goes.
Do you guys feel like you have any codependency or any of the other things that would
Yeah,
Well, I was gonna say
100%.
going to the self blaming. I feel like we don't blame ourselves, but rather we carry the weight of family problems.
Yeah.
I think
a
so
lot.
too.
Of like us needing to fix the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
Especially, I think back to freshman year, I was just so shocked how often you guys called for problems. Or another thing was your mom calling Bri and being like, you have to talk to your brother because he's failing his classes, or that never happened. But, shit like that.
No, I probably.
And I'm like, actually, no, I'm pretty sure. And I would be like, why is she telling you to fix it? You're a child.
But I wasn't.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, I think we just listened to her. I think she was puppeteering, but from a distance. So, like, and like, she still does this.
Mhm.
She's like, oh, yeah. Well, no, not
No,
like
your mom.
puppeteering, but she'll do the same thing. Like, just what Ali mentioned. She was,
Talk to so and so.
yeah, can
Mhm,
you just, like, talk to your sister and, like, make sure she's fine? And, like, also, like, encourage her to do what she's supposed to do. The thing is, with all of us, I feel we have a habitual thing of making sure, like, whenever we get like in trouble or like we're not agreeing on something, we like cut her out because we've learned to do that. We're like, okay, well, you're like being too much, let's cut you out right now.
Boundaries.
Yeah. And then she'll be like, oh, I can't reach him, the cord's been cut.
Yeah.
The cord's been cut.
The cord's been cut.
The cord's been
umbilical
cut.
cord finally cut.
I said, this is my phone, you're not gonna be blowing me up with something crazy.
I feel like it's harder to
I'm like, my Zell goes through, baby.
yeah, it's harder to create boundaries with a parent that's either narcissistic or has like narcissistic traits.
Yes, absolutely. I think there's a couple different ways to encourage that.
Well, and then if you do feel like that's the case, you feel like it's harder to make boundaries with somebody like this, how do you go about it?
So touching on what you asked earlier too, right? The codependency and this boundaries and like all that, it goes hand in hand, right?
Yeah.
So the craziness is that a narcissistic parent or parent that has a little more control over you. I don't want to call her a narcissistic parent, even if that's she's
What
gonna
she
listen to this
is.
episode
She's
and be like, oh,
So upset.
she's a controlling parent, but not narcissist. Maybe. But my point is like my
She's-
point is that she creates.
She's healing.
She's healing. She's going through therapy, but like by listening to this podcast,
Yeah.
it's fun. Because she won't go to therapy any other way. She says Mexicans don't go to therapy. Just FYI for all the Mexicans listening, don't
I'm
go
not
to
in
therapy.
yet.
Just
but-
kidding. This is my therapy session, so this is fine. So the codependency piece is so big in trying to create boundaries and learning to like basically get out of that situation. Key is that they create this codependency on them, right? This codependency that you ask for their advice, that you involve them in any major decision. And I think that's pretty normal, I think, in like any parent relationship, not just narcissistic, right? Like, where you're choosing to go to college, when you're choosing to buy a car. Who do you call? You call your parents, right?
Yeah.
But I think the main thing is also learning, like, are they the right person to be asking about these things? Because do they even know, right?
Are
Like, I
they
think,
qualified?
are they qualified? Or is it a DEI pilot? No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
I said half of America isn't even qualified right now. Let's be real.
Yeah.
I said our leaders are not
Our
qualified.
leaders are not qualified. They should have been
But
asking these
sometimes
questions.
they are your parents, okay? So we have to remember that. They may not have the right information to lead you in the right direction.
Mhm.
So make sure you're searching and seeking other sources to provide
Yeah,
that
don't
support.
put them on a pedestal. Trust me. Well, I mean,
Period.
putting them on a pedestal, like for me, like growing up, I put them on a pedestal, and then I grew up, and I was like,
Wait, what was that moment that you were just like, wait a minute?
Yeah, what
I
changed
think
for
it
you?
was definitely like also me going away for college because we're having the
Mm.
toughest time on me even being able to go to college, and thankfully they did help me the first year that I went to college.
I
They
think
gave
it was
me
like
this-
you begging
yeah,
to let him.
begging, he's gonna try, and I tried.
I
tried.
But I mean, and the second year they had, they were just like, you got to figure it out. Brianna, figure it out. You got to figure it out. So now it was me. It was on me to figure out the finances of it.
But it really shouldn't have been on her.
I joined a program.
So you said like it was the second year that it kind of like cut it for you?
Year because like I finally was. I joined a program where I was an RA, so I was a residential advisor. We were on site. We were ready to get everyone. We were pulling up to people's houses, making sure they didn't have animals in the dorms. It was crazy. People hotboxing. Not to mention, on top of that, I wasn't the best kid either. So
you're
put me in a situation where there's not awful kids, but kids doing stuff that they're not supposed to be doing. Obviously, I was not
like, let me join you.
Yeah, I was like not responsible enough for that position. Anyways, to go back to the topic, I did the RA program for about a year, and then the second term, I lost that position. So they stopped paying for my tuition. I had to go home. I was like, it's time to go home, sweetie. You're done.
It's time to go home, sweetie.
You're done.
Yeah, it really did feel like that. I cried for several days.
I was like, well, wrap it up.
Several days.
Oh, Jose.
But I get what you're saying because I feel like that was the first moment that you're on your own, figure it out.
Yeah. But it was just super hard for me.
It like lifted the veil.
But it also, it really did like lift that veil that like my parents aren't super.
I think it was also the first time he was making a decision that wasn't what they wanted.
Yeah, exactly.
If you really think about it, because what they wanted him to do was stay home, go to community college, like just and I kept pushing it that I was like, if he stays here, he's going to be around the same people doing the same things and like never growing, and he needs to like remove himself from that situation.
I don't know if I grew like in the right direction because that little city, city was just like not the best place to grow. You guys had a lot of diversity where y'all went.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
we found it diversity where I went. So it was
also
two
a smaller
different
school.
instances.
Did you feel like your parents had failed you, or you were just like, it is what it is?
Or did you self-blame?
Yeah.
I think I put it on myself at first, but also I realized that the decisions, like there was my growing up decisions that I was making I don't think I was doing what I was supposed to, but I did have good values. That's one thing that I will say is like I was going and doing things that I wasn't necessarily supposed to be doing, like studying or like just making sure everything was turned in on time, etc. But I let people get me caught up. And I had never had that issue before, but at the end of the day, like, I think I put it a little bit on myself.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk about, like, when you came back after that first year, second? I don't know.
The sophomore year.
Like, how did you feel? Were you still like, oh, I'm able to make my own decisions? Like, I'm still,
or did you, like, revert?
Grew up. I think I definitely, like, had detached and I stayed detached for a bit. Because when I came home, like...
He's looking at you like,
I think he's had his phases.
Yeah, well, it's because I was still being very, like, because in that same instance where you were like, they care about who you're hanging out with, what you're doing, like, I was hanging out with my sister's friends. And then also on top of that, the friends that I had were not the best friends that I needed. And then on top of that, I started dating around that time, and I was getting in serious relationships, and I hadn't even come out to my parents yet.
Dark time for Jose.
Yeah, dark times. Also, having that be a secret for so long, it pushed me to do self-growth because that was also another decision that they didn't want to hear.
Yeah. So again, different things he was doing at that point that broke that kind of shield that was like, I don't want to just be this person that you want me to be.
I want to do something.
Granted, I mean, like I said, he said, right, he made a couple mistakes along the way, but at the end of the day, he got to where he was going.
That was the best way to learn. Sometimes you have to make mistakes.
Yes, I agree. And mom expects no mistakes, though.
Yeah. Like it's
But it's unrealistic.
Clean.
That's part of the unrealistic expectations.
Yeah, because you could say like Brianna was literally gold star. And like she ended up still kind of like not being perfect. Which I was like, you can never be perfect.
Not being perfect according to your parents?
To their standards, yeah. I think I tried really hard, and I had always tried really hard.
And she did. We praised her as siblings. We praised her, told her every single time she was doing amazing. But like it never ever felt like enough because she was getting like the opposite end from my parents.
I think that was like one of the biggest things I noticed like right off the bat too is like this need that you guys always have to keep going and going. And I was like, but you're doing so good. And I feel like I want to hear from like you guys about that and how you feel personally now that you're 25, looking back and thinking about the decisions you make in life or where you're at, how to feel proud of yourself, even though you feel like you're being constantly told that it's not enough and you're not doing enough, you know?
Well, I think you definitely break that facade that comes with your parents not telling you enough when you actually, as an adult, independently make decisions that lead to failure. Is that weird to say? I'm like,
Kind of, but like that's an interesting
like, I'm just saying, like, it took me making mistakes of my own to realize that it's not even my parents' life. I'm failing myself. If I'm failing myself,
It's on me.
yeah, it's on me.
I think more so I wanted to know now about when you think of the accomplishments that you're making, do you feel proud of yourself, or is it still a battle for you to be like, I did that, you know, I'm doing so good, I'm about to graduate? Or is it still like, oh, I should be doing better, I could have graduated like last year?
It's definitely the second one.
Oh,
But also, I think that's like
It's still part of the process.
Yeah, it's still part of the process, but this is where you earn your sense of self.
And so did you feel like your frontal lobe developed today? Like, did you just wake up and you were like,
I mean, I still feel like
it'll get there.
it'll eventually
Men take a
settle.
little bit
And I
longer.
think I did definitely feel it a little bit earlier though, because
You said earlier today I was sitting on the couch and I was like,
no, I'm just saying like earlier in life, because I definitely came to terms with like what decisions I was making. You know what? There are better decisions. Like,
I think Jose's POV is a little bit different than mine because I feel like he said like I made mistakes and then like figured out my way out of it and like did it myself. I
life
think
goes
for
on.
me, life goes on.
on.
Yeah, and I feel like for me, I was on this straight and narrow path for so long that I got to a point where I looked back and I was like, you were so busy trying to do what was right that you missed out on doing what was wrong. There were parts, I think, I mean, granted, I did a lot of stupid shit growing up, and I think Jose says like, oh, you're a cool kid, but I'm like, I still did a lot of stuff that probably
She
I
definitely
shouldn't have.
broke the mold. I will say she broke
Yeah.
the mold, but I think she succeeded, and this is what she doesn't see, but she succeeded in so many different ways that, like,
Well, yeah, I was going to say that too because I see it a lot too. She'll literally get a better job that's paying her so much more, and she's like, but I could do better. But you're doing great.
Exactly.
Like, you should sit here and be like, I did it.
Narcissistic parenting. Melting.
never gonna leave.
Yeah.
It definitely comes back down to culture, essentially, where you have to do better so that your previous ancestors' like sacrifices were worth it. Like, it falls back to
I
that.
feel like that's a big one. Yeah, I like that.
It's
I can
really
agree.
hard, but
I
it's
can agree.
true. Like, I feel like I fall into that category sometimes because this is great. Like, I'm living such a good life, but my parents didn't.
It's on the backs of
My grandparents didn't come all the way like across the border from Mexico just to like me to be okay. I'm like, I need to be great. I need to be awesome.
That totally makes sense because I think growing up, especially even going to college, I have to do this and I have to do it right.
But
There's
yeah,
no other way.
I think this is also enforced from top down, though. This is something that's instilled in us from
The get-go.
parents.
Yeah.
I feel like my mom definitely told us these things growing up. Like she was like, I didn't, do all this
and
and
there's
that.
also a sense of like humbleness because, like, obviously you've never been, but like we go back to
I've
where
never
our-
been humbled.
No, never that. But like, what I mean is, in like our house in Mexico, like we go back there and we see where it came from, and you're just like,
This
in a
could have
weird
been us.
historical monument. Like you do put yourself in that place, and you're like, oh, like they really did come from the mud and the dirt. Like they came. I said,
That's
Adam and
true.
Eve are here.
Don't say.
But
Adam
no,
and
yeah,
Eve.
like you see it
More
from
like
the
Cain and
ground
Abel
up.
shit. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, literally. I'm like, okay, but it's
Yeah.
hard to see from like that historical background as well. Like people like did so much so I could just be here and succeed. Like live a life where I get to complain about things and like I always see that on
that was
TikTok
beautiful.
too.
Yeah,
And
isn't
I'm
it? Like, how beautiful is it that I get to complain?
I posted a video like that recently.
And I love those because it really does put yourself in perspective. People literally complaining about their Starbucks orders, people complaining about getting fast food. Like some people literally don't get that. They like don't live that life. And so there's also a sense of humbleness though that I think was instilled in us from young that we still carry around today.
Oh, Jose. His frontal lobe develops. Look at him.
No, definitely.
But
like,
it's still a work in progress.
it is
I think it's still a work in progress to remember
I
that.
think everyone's a work
Even
in
though we
progress.
have to carry all that weight, like it's still a work in progress to remember, like we're carrying it well.
Yeah.
You know,
And also
That's
try
beautiful.
not to make the same mistakes that your parents did. Like obviously parenting is like so difficult. There's not a skill tree to it. Like you can't just be an amazing parent.
Yeah.
Because it's literally two different bodies encompassing the same space. Like two different personalities, two different bodies. And that's what I need to remind you guys of. They're two different things.
My mom
Different
always says
interests.
that. She always says that, like, every child is very different, so she has to parent us all different.
Yeah.
She's a different parent to each
But
of us.
she tried the same technique with all of us. So that's where I think she kind of like lost it because
Lost it.
like she thought that the formula was the same every single time.
She wanted to copy paste, but she can't
But then the copy and paste wasn't working.
Yeah.
It was like each of us
Because
were our
They were
own,
like plagiarism.
each of us were our own guinea pig.
Yeah.
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 So, what are you guys' tips? Let's round it out for dealing with what do we call it? Over-involved parent, narcissistic parent with narcissistic traits. What do you think is like the biggest thing if somebody feels like, oh, I'm stuck right now, I'm trying to be independent,
Well,
I
if
can't get out?
You're stuck. Definitely open your mind up. I feel like that's been the biggest.
He said, think more. do better.
Do better. No.
Damn, spoken like a true narcissist.
No, but like open your mind more. Be more open minded about the possibilities of life and remember that your life, like I mentioned, goes on. It never stops whenever things seem like that they're lowest. And you can make decisions today that might change the outcome tomorrow. The butterfly effect.
Oh, that was beautiful.
You can always find something better. Your world is limitless, and this is another promo for The Sims, but like think of your life as a simulation. If people like can start from nowhere and get somewhere just like our parents did, like you can start from nowhere and get somewhere. So, and even though I did mention like it brings back a sense of humbleness, I think that even though we're experiencing this now, I'm sure that our grandparents experienced it a long
some
time
point,
ago
yeah.
because they had to leave their parents in
Yeah.
that same fashion.
It's a good trend. Yeah.
And I used to tell my significant other this too, my boyfriend, that I'm just like, they live their life. Live your life. It's your turn to live your life. Like,
Live
this
your
is your
life.
story.
Yeah.
So
Your story, I like that. Like, write your own story. You
Yeah.
don't have to have somebody write it for you.
I was
the
gonna say that.
simulation games are going to steal them.
It's
I
just
said,
a
I'm copywriting it.
It's copyrighted. No, I think, yeah, like that's my main thing is, I mean, there's obviously like generic tips like become financially independent to remove some
Yeah,
of
like
that.
those are the more realistic ones. But
Yeah.
also just knowing that you're limitless. Like
Yeah.
the universe
Yes.
is limitless. You are limitless. You can do whatever you want. It's so inspirational, so tacky, but it is so true.
He's so cute.
It is really like so tacky, but like
No, I love that. That your life is your own,
Mhm.
right? Like
Yeah.
remembering that even though you're part of someone else and that your parents did sacrifice or your grandparents sacrificed or whatever, at the end of the day, the only thing your parents should really want for you is your true happiness. And if you're not living it, you're living your life to the fullest and living your life as yourself and your true self and what you want, then you're not achieving the end goal, which is your true happiness.
yeah. I hope that this like blows up so that I can do like a midnight gospel cartoon of this.
Oh my
Like that would be really
I
cool.
hope that this blows up. Okay, let's not get crazy.
Listen,
For all of our
please,
10
blow
listeners
it
out
up,
there,
blow it up,
including my
guys.
mother.
Make it viral. Make it viral, guys. So that we can get a midnight gospel cartoon out of this. That would be really cool. I actually love that. That was such a good show. If y'all haven't seen it, y'all need to watch it.
Some tips: setting firm boundaries, which is really big. Knowing that you can set your own boundaries. You can limit contact if you really want to go there. You can seek professional help. We always say therapy is a great place to start.
Even if you're Mexican.
Even if you're Mexican, the
It
world
does
is at your
exist. It
fingertips.
does exist.
We live in a society where you can literally Google anything, so Google what you need to and find the resources out there. Educate
Knowledge
yourself.
is power.
Knowledge is power.
Knowledge is power.
So educate yourself. That's a big one. Whether that means like you're educating yourself through college, or you're going away, or you're like
Personal
educating
research.
yourself personally. Develop a support network is a big one. I think finding people that maybe are in the same situation or grew up in similar situations as yourself is
or
big.
maybe someone that
He's my
grew up
support
completely different
Huh?
from you.
I said, this is your.
Yeah.
But I think that's
Like
true.
same thing because Ali and Brianna are completely
Yeah.
different. Up
And
to
I
the
was
percent.
just kind of
It
like,
I agree.
some of these things are not normal.
It's
We got to
culture
break
shock.
out of this. Yeah, it's
I was
culture
like,
shock.
wait, you mean your mom doesn't tell you who your friends should be?
And I'm like, my mom loves me. I'm just kidding. Sandra loves her kids.
You do.
And
A
then
little too much.
that's kind of it. I think there's so many resources out there, and if you're struggling with somebody who maybe you do have a narcissistic parent or you have like an overprotective parent, it won't always be like that. Like, but
Yeah.
Thank you guys for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. And as always, remember to leave a review, comments,
To make this
subscribe.
viral, I want this on a Midnight Gospel episode, like a cartoon, please.
Thank you to Jose for being our very first guest. Hopefully, if you guys like this type of episode, we can do more. Make sure to subscribe for future episodes. If you're watching the video on YouTube, make sure to subscribe there and leave us a comment. And if you have suggestions for future episodes or guests of the podcast, please let us know.
Would you mind if I plug my socials?
Go ahead. I'll put them in
Okay.
the podcast notes,
Yeah.
episode notes.
I mean, like, I love you guys. You guys were like such a nice group of people to talk to. My sister and my lovely sister-in-law. But no, my socials are Jose Antonio Moreno Jr.
His full name. Government name.
Yeah, the government name is there, but like it's very singular, so like no one has taken it. So over on Instagram,
I'll link them in the show notes if you guys want to follow
tabs on
him.
Tony on Twitch.
Keep
And
tabs
I will
on Tony.
Keep tabs on Tony.
I love that.
Yeah, that's gonna be it. Those are all my socials.
All right, guys. Well, check the show notes, follow him, and thanks for listening.
Thank you. Bye,
Bye, guys.